Hi, I'm Walker&Williams, and today we are looking at the disaster that has been Luna crypto, or Terra Luna as it's formerly known. So what is Luna? What's it all about? Let's jump straight into it. If you haven't done it yet, go over to Twitter, create an account, follow @Walker&Williams, link in the description below, because you are missing out. We've got competitions where this week, last week somebody won this Ellie Powell memory box. This week somebody's going to win this mnemonic generator, and we have 6 of these to give away, 1 a week, and 6 of these to give away, 1 a week, in celebration of NFTLC, non-fungible token London City, the expo, the non-fungible token expo, the largest and in my opinion the best in Europe, that is happening in London this September. If you want details, there's a link in the description below. I'm going to be there. You come and meet me. We can chat, we can talk crypto, we can talk NFTs, anything you like. If you're an owner of my NFT project, the Walker&Williams partnership program, then you have automatic free entry to NFTLC. So bear that in mind if you've bought one of my NFTs. If you haven't bought one of my NFTs, have a look in the my website and you can follow it and have a look, see what it's all about. But I promise you, join Twitter now, thank me later. Okay, let's jump straight into it. So on Thursday, the 5th of May, so what are we on now? So on the 16th, on Thursday, the 5th of May, Luna was at $86.93. Just over a week later, on Friday the 13th of May, Friday just gone, Luna was at 0.00008930 . That basically means that if you had $1 million in Luna on Thursday the 5th of May, just over a week later, on Friday the 13th of May, your $1 million was worth $1.02. So wow, what went wrong? What happened? What is Luna Terra? We're about to find out. So Luna Terra is a stable coin. So it says here, Terra Luna is a stable coin, Terra and Luna. Not pegged to anything, stability is important for commerce. Okay, so what does this mean? So it's really important to understand that a lot of people confuse stable coins and say that they're pegged to the dollar, pegged to gold, pegged to something. Meaning that if Luna is one, if Terra Luna equals 1, then it's $1. If it's pegged to the dollar, then it's 1 is 1 and 1 is 1. And USDC, and there's other versions of it. However, they are not actually pegged in terms of, they are not attached. So there isn't a physical dollar that you can swap for 1 Terra. It's just pegged, meaning it tries to keep track of the price. So if a dollar is slightly weaker against the pound, then a Terra will be slightly weaker against the pound. If a dollar goes up and is worth more than a pound, then a Terra will be worth more than a pound. And it just tries to keep up with the price and the stability of the US dollar. It is not pegged to it. So, for example, in the gold standard, so before Nixon took America off the gold standard on August the 15th, 1971, the dollar, the US dollar, was actually pegged to gold. What does that mean? It means that you could go into a bank, in theory at least, I don't know if it was actually possible, but in theory at least, you could go into a bank and give them $20.67, and they would give you 1 troy ounce of gold. And there couldn't be more dollars in value than there was gold in existence. So there couldn't be a run on the banks, because if everybody went to the bank to change their dollars for gold, there was enough gold to pay the people out. So there couldn't be a run on the gold. All that would have happened is that the banks would have taken in all the money and the people would have taken all the gold. Then they would have said, oh, this is actually harder to spend the money, so my faith in the bank is back, so I give my gold back and get my notes back. So and it's just a case of where all the gold is and where all the notes that represent those gold. It's like IOUs for gold. And gold, of course, is real and it's physical. You can hold it. It has intrinsic value. Not much intrinsic value, but it does have intrinsic value in the sense that it could be jewelry. So you could wear it as a watch or as a necklace or whatever for social signaling and so on. So the US dollar used to actually be pegged, meaning it represented a 1-for-1 actual asset in the real world with tangible value. After August the 15th, 1971, of course, Nixon temporarily took the dollar off the gold standard, meaning they could print more money. And on this fateful day, the whole world and rules of money changed in an instant, and not many people paid attention. But that's a whole nother video. I've done videos on inflation and how it can help you if you know the rules of the game. Anyway, so let's not get bogged down into that. So Terra Luna is not pegged to the dollar in the same way the dollar used to be pegged to gold. So I'll explain in a second how it tries to keep track of the pound, but it's not pegged to anything. However, stability is important for commerce. It's very important that the cryptographic industry has some reliable, stable coins. The reason for this is because we need them for commerce. So let's say, for example, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we're going to use Bitcoin as alongside or instead of money. The problem with that is that when you go to the shops this morning, the pint of milk might cost you 1 Bitcoin. And then if you go back to the shop this afternoon, the cost of milk is 1 Bitcoin, but that Bitcoin is now worth 10 times more. So the milk this morning was 1 Bitcoin, and 1 Bitcoin equaled $100. So that milk is $100. You go this afternoon and the milk is 1 Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is now worth $1. So the milk is fair priced. And that's the problem. People who hold Bitcoins are scared to spend them on real world objects like broccoli or toilet paper because they're worried that tomorrow the price of Bitcoin will go up and they could have got the product cheaper. And the people selling produce are nervous because they buy their produce with dollars, and this pint of milk costs them 50 pence or 50 cent, and they accept 1 Bitcoin for it, which right then is a good deal. It's worth 50 cent, what they got it for, or $1 or whatever. But then tomorrow it halves in price. So they sell a Lamborghini for $1 million worth of Luna, and a week later it's worth $1. So you can't run a business without stability, and that's why it's so important to have real stable coins that are really pegged to something tangible. In order to peg something, as I've tried to explain, if you wanted to create a cryptocurrency and you said, right, we're going to do a stable coin and it's going to be pegged to gold, you would have to have the actual gold, physical gold, in possession. And you would say, or at least in reserve, that's apportioned to you, held for you. So you could say, okay, we've got 1 million stable coins, and each one of those stable coins equals 1 ounce of gold, and we've got 1 million ounces of gold, and that gold is in a vault somewhere, and so therefore it doesn't matter, there can't be a run, and that creates stability. So that's why, by the way, we have Terra Luna, sorry, it's the other way around, Terra Luna. So the reason we have Terra Luna coins is because you need 2 coins in order to make the stable coin. And Terra is the stable coin. Luna is the coin that facilitates Terra being stable. And the way that happens is, if Terra goes up in price, more Terra is created to dilute the amount of coins in existence, and that in turn reduces the price. But those extra coins have got to go somewhere. So people within the community who own Luna coins buy or trade their Luna coins for the Terra coins and hold them and keep them. And in that, they make a small profit, small but consistent profit, because this is happening very, very quickly, constantly happening as it fluctuates. And then if Terra price falls, then coins are burnt, making the value, I've put value and then I've put price, exclamation mark, because value is a very subjective word, go up. So if you want Terra to try and stay across $1, imagine you have 2 pots. And you say, okay, there's 1 million Terra coins and they're worth $1, and then the price starts to creep up. What do? We add a lot more Terra coins into the pot fills up with money, and the price goes down. And then if we overshoot it and the pendulum swings too far the other way, then we burn some of those, so we should destroy some of those Terra coins, and then they become more scarce, and therefore the price goes back up. And this is constantly happening by computers who are trading Luna coins for Terra coins to try and keep that price stable. And that is in a very basic concept of how this stable coin works. But it is not pegged to anything. Okay, now this is the bit where it takes a bit of a darker turn. Profits from exchanging Luna for Terra come from new money entering the market. So people have to be incentivized to do most things, whether it be love, money, to avoid punishment. Most human beings have to be rewarded or incentivized to do things, to behave in certain ways. If you don't want people to park on a certain street, then you give them parking tickets and so on. So the incentivization of having this constant trading to keep the price of the Terra coin stable is that you make a small profit on the difference between what you swap the Luna and Terra coins for constantly. You make a tiny little profit over and over again. But that profit has to come from somewhere, and it comes from new money entering the market. Now, if you have a project that has no real intrinsic value, or you have anything that has no real intrinsic value, and the only way value is added or profit is made within that ecosystem is new money coming into it, that by definition is a Ponzi scheme. There's no other way to describe it, and of course, Bernie Madoff is the most famous of those, and it's effectively where you borrow money off one person to repay the interest and or capital to another person, and then they lend more money and you use that money to repay them, and the amounts get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you siphon off some of the difference, and that's how you create your living. But it is mathematically impossible that it will continue forever, because the numbers keep getting bigger. You have to keep borrowing money, and the minute no new money enters the system, the whole thing collapses. So no one yet seems to know, and I have been looking around on the internet and sort of looking on all the sort of under stones and down dark alleys looking for the reason, the trigger. So I know why it crashed, I just don't know what triggered it, what the spark was. So no one yet seems to know what the trigger was, but every market gets tested, and there was a run on Luna which collapsed the price. Now, tinfoil community saying it was the Winklevoss twins, the WV twins. Okay, so as I say, I don't know what the trigger for the collapse was. Now, the collapse, every market goes under what they call market pressure or a test. So people lose a bit of faith in Hedera Hashgraph, gold, diamonds, soybeans. It could be XRP, it could be anything. And that's when you see the price drop and go up. Sometimes it's because it's the market just testing how strong the asset is. So I don't know, this could have literally just been nothing more than the market testing the validity of Terra Luna. Now, what some people in the community are saying, and I'll explain why in a second, that the Winklevoss twins have shorted or bet against Terra Luna in order to make a lot of money. Now, I haven't seen any proof of this. It's just a case of like, you know, this is what we believe may have happened. And there is kind of like, it's not just completely made up, which I'll explain why in a second. We'll go through this whole story of what's been happening in the run up to the collapse. So I don't know what triggered it, but I do know why it happened. Although I don't know what the trigger was, I do know what didn't help. The founder, Do Kown, was/is an nincompoop and a bully. So this guy is a genuine cyber bully. Now, you have to bear in mind that this guy is the founder of this project. So everyone looks to him in the same way that people look to Elon Musk for Tesla, or Lehman, Baird and Mance Harmon for Hedera. And so what he says and what he does have a huge impact on the project. It's undeniable. If you've got one person at the helm making the decisions, then those decisions, like Lehman famously said, if you can tweet and change the price of something, then you have the responsibility not to do so. Now, this guy is the polar opposite. He's a genuine nincompoop and a cyber bully to boot. So he, for example, anyone who questioned his project and pointed out, I mean, some of these, I've read some of the tweets historically, and some of the people were like being genuine, were like trying to help the project. A bit like when I made the XDC video. And luckily for me, that was well received by the community on the most part, and they understood that the constructive criticism I made on that project was to help improve it. I'm not trying to hurt. I'm trying to say, this bit of your website doesn't work. So you can say, oh, you're an idiot and it doesn't matter, and argue and scream and shout, or you could just fix it and make the project stronger and better for the future. This guy liked to do the former. So anyone who pointed out obvious and really fair flaws in his project, like the fact that the only way you get value and profit is from new people entering the space, and that's a real problem. You have to create genuine utility in order for it to not be a Ponzi. He just called them retarded. I hate that word, but I've got to use it because he did. He called them retards, he called them peasants and poor. I mean, this is a guy who has genuine disdain for people. He's done well for himself. I don't think he's from money. He's done incredibly well for himself. He's created this project that a lot of people believe in. He's made a lot of money. You could argue illegally, you know, as a Ponzi, but it's made him arrogant and like, he has complete disdain from what I've read for people in general. Just disgusting. You have two ears and one mouth for a good reason. Anyway, so blah, blah, blah. If Netflix has taught me anything, it's that you do not mess with the internet. Do Kown, and by the way, he's at Stable, Stable, KWON, if you want to have a look at him on Twitter, at Stablecoins. He's lost about 100,000 followers in the last week, by the way. Called anyone that pointed out the obvious and fair weaknesses in his projects, retards, peasants, and poor. So he'd been doing this for years. He'd been bullying people and blocking people, deleting people, humiliating people, going back in their things and saying, well, you said this and blah, 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 and just a genuinely horrible person. And then it all came to a head when a guy called Freddie Reynolds, and his at is his name, so Freddie Reynolds as it's spelt, at Freddie Reynolds, put out a long thread on Twitter, which is loads of tweets in a row, because you've only got a certain limit on Twitter, so you put one of 9, 2 of 9, 3 of 9, 4 of 9. And he did this long thing, really well presented, really fair, like level-headed, kind of like matter of fact. It wasn't a rant, or he wasn't a disgruntled customer or anything like that. As far as I know, he'd never had any previous sort of communication with Do Kown, and he just said basically that there was a way to make real money, like tens of millions of dollars, if you just shorted this project, which means betting against it with derivatives, George Soros style. So if you don't know, George Soros is a guy that bet against the English pound. He had a load of debt in dollars. He bet against the pound, and he did it with so much money that it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So effectively, if you imagine it like pressure. So you have any commodity, whether it be soybeans or the sterling, so you have the pound there, and it's sitting there, just sitting at a certain price, okay? Here it is. And you put pressure on it, on top. You sit it on top with bets against it, saying it's going to go down, it's going to go down. And then if you put enough of those bets on top, the pressure starts to push the price down. And the whole market starts going, computers and algorithms start picking up things from the air. There's a big bet against the pound. There's a big bet. There's another big bet against the pound. There's another big bet. So, and then a computer says, I better bet against the pound and follow the trend. We've got a trend. So, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And George Soros bet against the pound, reduced it down, and then paid off his debts for a lot less money than he actually owed by playing the market. And so that's called a George Soros attack. So if your company is on the stock market and I bet against it, so I put money down to say that your stock price is going to go down, if I've got enough money, I can actually make it drop and then I make money. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what Freddie was basically saying is that you could bet against this project and keep cycling the money through and through and through, and eventually it would actually come true and then you'd make money in the short. So Do Kown actually sees this thread and responds, calling it the most retarded thing he's read in a decade or in a long time or whatever. Okay, so like, I mean, it's disgusting language anyway, but you don't say that to someone who's like made a really sort of academic point. He then challenged, he went one step further, this arrogant guy, and he challenged any billionaire following him, or I guess any billionaire on the internet who saw the tweet, to try and crash his project. So he actually like called out everyone following him, and he's got like 700,000 followers, and said, any billionaires following me, try and crash my project, watch what happens. So there's like a nice little threat at the end too. So like the arrogance of this guy. So then off the back of that, a guy called Algod, which is at ALGOD Trading, TRADING, says, completely separately to this actually, sorry, this was after this, but it was kind of like, it's all the same theme, but it wasn't as a direct result of this. He basically says, he has 108,000 followers, and he says to all of them, if Luna hits a new all-time high, I'm going to short it with size. And that basically means I'm going to bet against it with a lot of money. So Do then responds to this guy saying, yeah, but your size isn't size. Meaning what you think is big money isn't actually big money. Basically calling him like a little man or a little woman. I'm guessing it's a man from the way he talks, but you know, I could be completely wrong on that. And so he says, yeah, that's fine, but your size isn't real size. Basically calling me a little boy, you know, saying you're big, but what's big to you is not big to me. I'm a big shot. So so Do responds, your size isn't size. A guy called GCR at Gigantic Rebirth, GIGANTICREBIRTH, sees this and says, okay, hotshot, I bet $10 million that Luna is at a lower price this time next year than it is today. And Do responds to this and says, you're on. So they ask a guy called Kobe, which is at COBIE, to be the referee. They both transfer $10 million worth of crypto to Kobe wallet. So Kobe kind of holds the money. Kobe, by the way, has got like 600,000 followers. He's got a podcast and loads of other things. So he's kind of like Switzerland in this. And so they give their money to Kobe or Switzerland, and Kobe holds the money to oversee the bet. $20 million is now at stake. This is how arrogant this guy is. He bets $10 million that his project will not be worth less this time next year. Then GRC comes back, after this bet is set, GRC comes back and says, I'll tell you what, let's double it. You said that this guy, small fry, your size isn't size, blah, blah, blah. You're talking a big boy, you're talking a big game. Let's call it 20 million. Now this time, Do doesn't respond. He ignores that. So after about a week or so, GRC says, okay, I've got 10 million bet, winner takes all with Do Kown direct. And with the other 10 million that I want to put into this bet, I'm going to use that to short the project. So he's got 10 million bet, winner takes all, 10 million each, 20 million pound winnings on this. And then he's got another $10 million shorting this project. So he ignores it. Okay, a week later, it crashes. So we're around here when all of this is happening on Twitter, and then a week later it crashes. I'm guessing, I don't know, but I think this guy, Gigantic Rebirth, I think he will have made about $16 to $20 million. If he ever sees this, please comment below and let us know how much you made shorting that crypto. So the three lessons that we can learn from this project are, number one, invest in projects, and I use the word invest because gambling's different. Invest in projects that have real world utility and you understand how they work. So Hedera Hashgraph is being used to track the COVID vaccines. It has intrinsic value because it's used to do stuff. It has a value, like gold is used for jewelry, Hedera is used for tracking COVID. XRP is used by about 200 financial institutions for sending money all over the world. There are projects that have intrinsic value. So yes, before they started and had a use case, new money coming into the space was the way that they got value. The only way they could have value or profit was new money coming in. And that's how most projects start. If you have a company and you go on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or whatever, and you're pre-revenue, the only way that company has more value is by the investors investing money into it. But that doesn't mean it's a Ponzi if you then go on to create intrinsic value within the business. It's how all businesses start, because businesses start usually as an idea. So the idea isn't worth anything when it's an idea, but then I put £1 million into it or $1 million into it. That money there is no value in the business. That money is literally the value itself, which is what a Ponzi is, except that idea then goes on to become something in its own right. So invest in projects that have intrinsic value. Invest. Now, there's nothing wrong with a dabble, gambling and having a punt. If you want to put $100 into Luna, go ahead, but accept the fact that it is gambling and you may lose the entire lot. But only gamble how much you're willing to lose. $100 in here, consider it 100 lottery tickets. If it goes back by some miracle, it goes back to $86, you've made a lot of money. And if it completely dies and goes away, then you've lost $100, you've lost £100. No big deal, I was willing to lose it all. But when you're investing, you have to invest in something that is tangible and has real world. And you have to understand the difference between investing and gambling. Number two is educate yourself. So that feeds back into the trading versus investing versus gambling. Knowledge is power. I've seen some heartbreaking tweets from people. One guy said, I've invested $400,000 in Luna. I've lost a lot. It's now worth 40 cents. And it's my world's life savings. And I'm a couple of years away from retirement. I've lost my pension. I've lost everything. And although that's heartbreaking and it goes against everything I stand for, if I knew the guy, I'd have to ask, if you knew like the behavior of the leader, Do Kown, if you knew he was a cyber bully, arrogant, not willing to listen, not willing to learn, a man-child, the most emotionally unintelligent person you could ever meet, like the disgusting arrogance and disdain for human life that this guy has, And on top of that, it's super easy to find out that he's been in charge of a project that failed and was actually a Ponzi, and you've still invested 400,000. So if you knew all that and you invested 400,000, then it's your fault. And if you didn't take the couple of minutes, literally, it takes to find this stuff on this guy, and you still invested, it's your fault. So if you knew, it's your fault, and if you didn't know, it's your fault. And that's a bit of tough love, I get it, but that's a fact. So learn that lesson from these poor people who've lost all their money on Luna. If you are invested in projects right now in a sizable way and you don't think it's gambling, you believe you're invested in these projects, it's time to do a bit of homework. It's time to grow up and have a look at these projects. Look at people like the leaders of Hedera Hashgraph and XRP. Look at the way they behave. Look at what they say. Look at their track records. Look at the way people talk about them. Who are unassociated, like myself and other YouTubers. How do they regard these people in society? Who are the people backing them? Is it the London School of Economics, or is it his next door neighbour? And then you've got, because there are projects right now, live right now, and the founders are no better than Do Kown, with 6 Rolexes on their arm, with all diamonds, saying, if you can't afford this, then I don't want you to talk to me, and all that kind of stuff. Is that the kind of person you really want to trust with your money? Maybe you do. So educate yourself, understand the difference between gambling and investing. Real world utility is important. Educate yourself, knowledge is power. And then I would say lastly, if you don't understand how something works and you're not thick and you can't be bothered to learn how it works, then don't invest in it in a sizable way. We're all busy, but no one is thick, okay? It's easy to find YouTube videos for free on the internet that will teach you about anything. If you are invested what you consider to be big money in a project and you don't understand the fundamentals of the project and how it works, and you can't be bothered to take the time to learn, then don't invest in it. Because you could and should lose all your money. The last lesson I think that we can learn from this that I haven't put on the board, because I actually don't believe it applies anymore. A lot of people, you'll hear them in the investing communities and they'll say, never invest more than you're willing to lose. That made sense before August the 15th, 1971, when inflation was pretty much non-existent. As good as makes no difference, non-existent. Which meant if you had $100 in 1951, it was worth and bought about the same as it did in 1961, 10 years later. However, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, inflation meant that every year your money is worth less. At the moment, according to the Bank of England's own website, inflation is at 6.5%. Which means if you've got $1 million in your current account, in your bank account, earning practically no interest, let's say you're earning 0.5% a year, and inflation is at 6.5%, which basically means you're net losing 6% a year. After 10 years, that $1 million only buys $400,000 worth of stuff in today's money, which basically means if you do nothing, you will lose all your money. In enough time, inflation will erode all of your money. It's why your parents bought their first house for £6,000 and bought a brand new car for £400. Today, that house sells for $250,000, but 220,000 of that is just inflation. It's actually only sold for about 30,000 more than they bought it for, not the 250,000 versus the 12,000 because of inflation. Or to look the other way, 250,000 today, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time, will buy about 12 grand's worth of stuff. So to say don't invest, and I'm not gambling, invest more than you're willing to lose, doesn't really make sense post-1971, because if you do nothing, you're going to lose it anyway. So it's important for your own future, for your family's future, for your security and finances, that you invest in stuff. But you invest, not gamble. You educate yourself, knowledge is power, and you take the time to learn and understand the project, the commodity, whatever it may be, the mineral that you're investing in. As always, thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you soon.